Welcome to the On the Top Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Jason Polano. Here we discuss all of the new and important waves in swimming, and no better time has there been for innovation than in a post-COVID swim-pocalypse. I'm here today with Aqauatics Associate Head Coach and Head Coaches, Mike Anzano and Jenna Purkey. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Doing good, man. Doing good.
We got to give a little lesson on pre-practice nutrition today, so that was fun. Mm-hmm. And then we ate all of it, so.
That's the best part. I work for a school district, and I'm still on the high school email list. And I do that on purpose because anytime our culinary teachers say that they need taste testers, I'm usually first one in line.
That's awesome.
All right, so we are going to talk today just kind of about what can a virtual meet / a COVID-safe meet look like for our club teams, our high school teams, our programs around the country. Mike and Jenna, I was going to ask you first, though, what has been your history in the sport? You know, how'd you get into it? How have you evolved from swimmers into coaches today?
Yeah, you can start, Jenna. You got this.
Well, we both grew up in El Paso and ended up separately in Midland, so it's kind of a funny story. But I started swimming when I was 7. I got kicked out of gymnastics because I tried to do everything too fast. And I know, right? So then I started swimming at the age of 7, and I loved it, and swam all the way through high school. I went to college, studied music, thought I was done with swimming, and I was swimming laps at the YMCA just to stay in shape. And I saw the guy who was coaching the club team in Abilene. I went to school at Hardin Simmons in Abilene, and there were 4 10-year-olds in the water, and he was like, okay, 4 200s butterfly pull, ready, go. I was like, can I volunteer? Can I help out? I mean, I'd helped out with the team growing up. You know, and when you swim for that long, you help out with the little guys, and I coached summer league and all of those, or helped out with summer league. And so I started coaching. He let me come every other Tuesday. And then he stopped showing up, and the Y was like, do you want to be the coach? Because if not, we don't have a swim team. So I was like, well, I guess I'll say yes, you know. And
kind of pinning me in a corner here.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I started coaching, and I kept studying music, but the longer I did both, the more I loved coaching, and it was all over from there. So I've been coaching since 2005.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
And coached in Abilene for 6 years against Midland, and then the head coach at the time was Andy Corda, and he brought me over as the head age group coach, and have been on my own journey here at COM, interim head coach, back to age group coach, assistant head coach, co-head coach, and then head coach. So it's
very
been
cool.
A journey, but that's how I got here.
Yeah,
that's so interesting. I didn't realize that Andy had made a stop in Aqauatics. That's very interesting.
Yeah, he was here for 5 years.
Yeah, and now he's down at Blue Tides, right?
Yes, yeah.
Very, very cool. Mike, how about you? How did you wind up on this wonderful journey as a swim coach?
Yeah, so I guess I'm more non-traditional. Didn't start swimming till high school. Was really just a high school swimmer. I did club, but that was just to be a good high school swimmer type situation. But then I swam in college at UTPB. And COM, that's where once November hits, the college team trains at COM because it's cheaper to pay COM to rent their lane space than it is to run a heater all winter for an outdoor pool. But and then I noticed they had a team, and our grad assistant was a coach there. And I was like, hey, you just let me know when there's a spot. I'll come assist, whatever. I'd always been interested in coaching, and I'd done a little bit of summer league coaching in El Paso. But then I don't know, COM gave me a shot, and I've been there 8 years now, going on 9.
Awesome.
So I started coaching while I was a junior in college and was there part-time. And once I graduated, they hired me full-time. So,
and for those that don't know,
there was 1 year where I went to teaching. I was a teacher. I was a math teacher, and then I coached just part-time. And so that lasted a year. And then
oh, you were one of those teachers that left after a year?
Yeah, man. You know what? I hate that statistic because it makes it seem like I'm a quitter. But man, the back end, the
It's
deal
just,
is
yeah,
so much, it was just a better deal. It's just a better deal for me.
Full-time coaching,
absolutely.
pretty sweet gig.
Full time coaching. Yeah.
And for those people that are listening and don't know, like you're probably thinking like Central Texas, West Texas, this is just an 8-lane pool with, a couple coaches here on deck, few kids that are bronzed and tan. Absolutely not. This is a huge development. This is one of the most beautiful facilities I've ever seen. I follow Mike religiously on Instagram, and um, the things he posts about this facility, I'm like, you guys are like your own oasis in the middle of the state. Uh,
7 schools.
7 pools. That is intense. So we're going to talk a little bit here about, how did you make this meet possible? Who was there? How did it operate? Just kind of take us from square one to square 100. What did it look like for the average person in that pool that day?
Yeah. So how about I'll start with why we wanted to get into it and stuff, and I'll let Jenna talk about the details. It's kind
He's
of how
the
we.
dreamer. I make it happen. That's
So
how it works here.
So, we are in a lucky situation. We own our own pool. So as soon as we were allowed as soon as like gyms opened back up, we were allowed to start practices. Right away, right out the gate from our season starting back in May, we were like, we need to make sure the season is still fun. That because it's a little weird, one kid per lane, per end, that sort of thing. It is hard to find fun right now in the normal way that we did it before, right? Like you can't have these big team cheers where we're all together, these big swim
Or
meets,
sharks and minnows.
sharks and minnows, like ultimate frisbee's out of the question right now. Like, man. So we were like, we got to have a swim meet, we got to make it fun, but we also have to make it work. So I mean, that was the real idea behind it. Was just we want to make it fun. We've had two now. The first one was a little, I don't know if weird is the right word, but I guess it was a little weird. The kids they swam okay, and their feedback on the first one was like, yeah, with nobody cheering for you, it's really weird to race because there's no spectators. There wasn't anybody standing on the side of the pool other than coaches. Um, but the second one went way better, and like a lot of lifetime best, good swims, that sort of thing, and we adjusted. But I mean, the big why was like the fun part of swimming is racing. So if we aren't using our brains to figure out how to create that competitive environment, no matter the situation, then I feel like we're getting away from like why we do what we do. Because like we all love the sport because we love the competition. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I think that we're in a situation right now as a coaching community where it's like we've lost our why. Like, and our kids know it. It's terrifying because we are always like, hey, this sucks, but it's going to pay off. This hurts, but it's going to pay off. This is not fun, but this is all going to be worth it when you go that time. And now that's kind of like out the window. And we as coaches, we need to find ways to reach our kids and make it exciting for them again. And our kids aren't dumb. Like I had a meeting with my captains the other day, and I was like, I want to be transparent with y'all. What questions do you have about this coming year? And I'm going to give you my most honest answer. And the first question was, are we going to have an end of season meet? And being honest and transparent, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So we need to find ways to still reach those kids where the primary motivating factor for a lot of our, senior level age group kids and senior athletes is they want to be able to go fast on one day in February and March. And that may or may not happen.
Yeah.
All right, Jenna, I'm ready for the specifics of this because I'm taking notes. I've got 6 home meets scheduled for this coming season, and I need to know the hows of the specifics. So let's hear it.
Just let me say one thing just before we move on from the why. I know a lot of us feel like our hands have been tied with USA Swimming's announcement for July of times not counting. And I know a lot of kids were disappointed. For my group, it took a lot of the wind out of their sails, but like the first or second day of quarantine, Mike started saying we can still get better. Like, but what is it that we're going to get better at? And I made a joke earlier that he's the dreamer, but he really has kept that vision in front of us of like, yes, we're competitive swimmers, but there's always something we can get better at as swimmers and as humans. And so what are we going to do? And so I know we have kind of reframed our role. It's not just about swimming right now. It's about getting better. And so I think that's been a huge thing to not let us get
stale,
depressed and stale and mopey. And I know a lot of coaches, we're in a really great situation. We're not worried about our jobs. And I know a lot of coaches are worried about their jobs and how are they going to make dues and all of those things. But I would just say, like, if you're looking at having a swim meet, that it needs to be about you wanting to help your kids get better. And it's not about anything other than that. It's about the integrity of the sport and keeping it fun so that kids stay in the sport, because there's a potential here for a lot of athletes to leave swimming and never come back.
Exactly. It's so much easier to go. It's so much easier to grab a basketball and go outside and play basketball, or grab a soccer ball and go on an open field and play soccer, than it is to wait around for a pool to open up. And I think you guys are spot on.
Well, and keeping it fun too, right? We were on that USA Swimming Zoom call yesterday, and I asked the question, like, what are other people doing for fun, like in your practices? And it was like,
if you can't see, she's holding her arms up.
Sorry. Yeah.
I don't know.
It was silent.
She's doing the shrug emoji.
And it was that quiet. And there were like 80 people on the call, and my husband's an official, and I told him about that, and he's like, well, y'all better figure this out, or kids are not going to have fun with this sport, and they're going to quit, and they're never coming back because it's hard. Like, okay, yes, we do.
Agreed.
So all that to say, we figured out how to have swim meets, and it's been fun. So the first swim meet we had was pre-Abbott's mask mandate. So that one was a little bit easier, right? We didn't have to worry about masks. The facility that we're in is was not requiring athletes to wear masks at that point. Employees were, so we were coaching in masks. As long as we weren't within 6 feet of the kids, we could take them off. But so first thing to figure out, right, is warm up. Well, I guess I felt like warm up was the thing that was going to limit the number of athletes in the session, because warm up's the trickiest part to keep socially distanced. So we have 22 lanes. We can put 44 kids in the water. So I felt like at that point for the first meet, we listed our kind of capacity as 88 kids. So we had 2 warm-up sessions, and we used our practice groups to figure that out. We didn't do it by age group or gender. We used our practice groups because we felt like that was already the peer group they were exposed to, and so we weren't increasing exposure or anything like that. And so I would say start with warm-up. What's your warm-up situation, and how can you follow the guidelines of the facility and determine your number of athletes from there?
That's so smart to do it by exposure groups. Like I would have immediately thought, I wouldn't have thought to do that but you're right. Like, those are the kids that they're already around. Why would we cross-contaminate more? That's great. Awesome.
So that's how we did it for the first one. We did, we had, how many sessions did we have? We had 4 sessions. We had 4 different sessions. But just like sidebar, one of the sessions we did was a 7 and under meet, and we did it in our little pool that's warmer. And I think we will probably forever do these now because they've been awesome. Like,
it's like 12 kids.
Like 12, 15 kids of our like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and the meet was over in like start to finish, from the time they got dropped off till the time they were walking out the door, was like 45 minutes. And they all walked out with ribbons because we did heat winner prizes. Oh my gosh, those little guys. There was one little boy that came up to Mike and was like, this was the moment where I was like, okay, we have to keep doing these. This little guy was new on the team, and he walked up to Mike and was like, I am awesome. I mean, did you see that? I am really good at this. And he'd been to maybe 3 or 4 practices, but it was like, okay, this is the kind of excitement and hope that we need in our world right now. And this is why we're doing this. Like, it was so great and inspiring. So that was really cool. But so we did a 7 and under meet with our developmental level. We did an 8 and over meet with our developmental level. And then we had, at that point, all of our upper level 11 and overs together, and then all of our kind of the competitive kids, but not quite as advanced, more kids that are like B level. And so those were our 4 sessions. The way we did it was we have a courtyard. Okay, so coming into the courtyard, we did our check-in process, which is temperature check and attendance. And so we had coaches stationed at the courtyard gates. They checked temperatures. So then once an athlete was inside, we didn't have to worry about it. And then it was also super hot that week. So we we did have a little bit of trouble with the thermometers and stuff, but we just got their temperatures as soon as they got out of their cars. It was like we were standing right at the gate. In the courtyard, we had little yellow duct tape marks spread out all on the floor, 6 feet apart. So they got their temperature checked, and then they went and they found their own spot on the ground. Find your yellow mark, sit on your yellow mark. They took their whole bag with them. That part, I think, was the only unexpected challenge was not letting that part be super awkward and boring, because they all just sat down and everyone's nervous because this is the first meet we've done. So it was like we had like 50 kids in the courtyard, and it was like silent.
And for those kids, like part of those developmental years as a human being is you learn social skills. And for some of those kids, they've been without social skills for like 2-3 months. So you're not even having to deal with the direct issues of managing those numbers. You're also having to deal with kids that don't know how to be kids.
Yeah.
I mean, what a challenge.
And it was 104.
Yeah.
Which we didn't think about that either. And so they were real hot. So we got water bottles out there pretty quick. We punted on that. What else did we got our junior coaches. We hired several junior coaches this summer that have been helping with instruction on the opposite side of the pool. And we got them playing Simon Says, and then doing trivia. So those were all appropriately social distance games, but it just got the energy going a little bit, but those were definitely unexpected hurdles that we didn't think about, was how awkward it would be sitting there waiting for your warm up session. And then at that meet, we had not assigned lanes for warm up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
athletes. We had just given, like, Mike, your group is in lanes 1 through 5. Jenna, your group is in lanes 6 through 10. So then we did have a little bit of trouble, the kids just kind of congregating around their coach, asking what lane they were supposed to be in.
Yeah. So at all the practices, each kid has an assigned lane. So you go to the same lane every day, like no matter who goes to practice. So an issue with that, you have kids showing up late also. That's just going to happen. So if you have your group already in the water, it's 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. Another 10-year-old walks in, all their coaches are in the building. You just have volunteers in the courtyard, and the kid's like, I don't know where to go. And the parents are like, I don't know where you need to go either.
No, the parents are already gone because we don't allow spectators. So they just dropped them off at the curb and took off,
Well, no, I mean the parent volunteers.
Oh, yeah, the volunteers, yes. Yeah. So we did learn from that second meet. We assigned, based on the athletes that were coming and registered for the meet, we assigned warm-up lanes ahead of time. So
is that something that you guys were able to do through High Tech or Active or Meet Manager, or was it just a spreadsheet and you go here, you go here, you go here?
Yeah, we used a Google Sheets so that every coach had access to it, and there was tabs for the different warm-up times. So no matter what coach a kid ran into,
they could see it. Every
coach could communicate to any kid where they need to be.
We also printed them and hung them all over the pool.
Awesome.
So that was, I guess those were the really 2 unexpected hurdles of the first meet. But so they stayed in the courtyard on their yellow dot. Warm up started. They went to their lane, did warm up, then went straight back outside to their yellow dot. Second session of warm up went the same way, and then we had all of our volunteers in masks. We only had kind of like the skeleton crew, right? So we had 1 timer per lane. We had a starter and a deck ref, even though it wasn't sanctioned, because it was in June, so we weren't allowed to be sanctioned yet. But and then we had like a head timer,
safety marshals, ready bench workers,
and hospitality. So we tried to.
So you guys did still work a ready bench during this meet?
So we don't typically work a ready bench. The ready bench was our solution to social distancing. So
perfect. I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So what we did for this meet, for the developmental, where all of the kids were sitting outside and they're still pretty new to meets, was we had duct tape numbers on the ground, and we had 2 heats outside on the wall, and then just the flow of our building, it makes sense. There's a door right by where we start the 25s, and for those meets we only did 25s, right? Yeah, we only had the 25 free, 25 back, and a 25 kick. And so it was like 2 heats on the ground outside, and they were all 6 feet apart, and literally their number was on the ground. Like, we made numbers out of duct tape, and then 2 heats inside, and then the kids at the blocks. And so we had volunteers outside calling kids names to line up. So that would be 5 heats back.
Yeah.
And then honestly, once you got that fifth heat in line, and then we had someone at the door just moving them forward, kind of like a little assembly line situation.
Yeah, very fast.
Yeah, and
but it's organized, and that's the key here. Is I think so many programs are going to want to do this meet. Like I work with high school kids.
Yeah,
my high school kids, I don't know if they would be receptive to a ready bench, but if they didn't have some sort of organizational method of getting behind the blocks, they're just going to be hanging all over each other. It's going to be bad. I mean, it's just going to be, if someone were to take a picture and post it on Hood County Breaking News.
Yeah, no, that's literally, I mean, it sounds bad, but like one of our goals is like, don't do anything that's going to get you on the news. I mean, we love our facility, and we're so grateful for our current opportunity. We would hate for that to be ruined because
some 16-year-old boy posted a picture of him hanging on the girly legs. Yeah. No, our high schoolers were not receptive to it. They were not. So basically, I decided to take the approach of, I know this feels stupid. Like, I was honest with them about that. I was like, look, I know you know how to get to your block. You don't need a ready bench. But if we don't have a way to appropriately stay 6 feet apart, we're not going to be allowed to have meets. And who wants to race? And who wants to race for bills? And they're all raising their hands. So it was like, well, suck it up and do the ready bench. Yeah. And they did. They did fine. The second one was a little bit harder with masks with the high school kids because, I mean,
you had to wear it at the ready bench.
Yeah, through the ready bench process, right? And then they had to give a lot of them just set their mask on the timer's chair, did their race, and then picked their mask up. But yeah, the high school kids were not receptive to it at first, but we've gotten some really good buy-in from, I'd say, about half of the kids, half of the high school athletes, which is helping with the ones that are being a little sassy,
Sure. Peer pressure.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So, but okay, back to the logistics of the meet. So they go through the ready bench, right? And then, so for the 25s, it was really, really easy. They started on the side where they came in, right by the door. They swam across, and then they walked out a different door back to the courtyard. That one was simple. The 50s were a little bit different, 50s and 100s. So the ready bench for that one went behind the far side of the lanes and then down the side of the pool, like by lane 1. And so we had 4 heats there, and then they would go behind the timer chairs, like against the wall. They were about 6 feet behind the timer chairs. And then when the short whistles were blown, they would go in front of the timer chairs. So we those were a little different. And we did flyover starts. So the first meet, the way we did it was a coach talked to the athletes as they were walking by in the ready bench, right? And then a different coach spoke to them so that the athlete didn't have to backtrack, so they could follow the flow of traffic. A different coach spoke to them before they got in the warm down pool, which it worked fine, but for continuity of coaching and instruction, it wasn't great. So what we did the second meet, which I thought was really, really good, I feel like each athlete actually got a whole nother level of coaching than they normally do, was we assigned a coach a lane. So I had lane 1 every heat. It didn't matter if I had kids in lane 2, 3, 4, 5, or if the athlete in lane 1 is not in my practice group. I was coaching lane 1. And so I talked to that kid as they walked by for the ready bench. And then after they swam, we actually stopped the meet. Like, we paused, and every coach went over to the lane and talked to the kid while they're in the water. They just stayed in the water. And then the coaches walked back to the side of the pool, started the next heat, and then we went. So it actually helped the pacing of the meet a little bit too, because we were a little too.
It's herding cats, so you're going to want that extra time built in. But also for those kids that maybe they never had Mike as their coach, or they never had Jenna as their coach, like, they got to hear something a different way, and that can make connections. Yeah,
and also it was good coach development for our younger coaches too, because it was like, what do you mean I need to watch the kid with the futures cut? What am I supposed to tell her? Like, well, what did you notice? What did you see? Those kinds of things. So that was really good. The only thing we ran into in the second round of meets, after the mask mandate, was in our developmental program, we let our 11 and overs do 25s. And so, like, the logistics of their mask. So what we had them do was, that ready bench area, again, is outside. So we we just made sure that they went straight to their lane, swam their 25, and straight back outside to their stuff, because we didn't see a solution. I mean, I guess we could have handed out temporary masks when they got out of the water, which that would be that's a lot of temporary masks, but that's an option if your facility is super strict. For us, it was acceptable to just walk straight outside to their stuff.
Even thinking that if they did the 25, turn around, come right back, because then you get that time built in. Right?
That was one of the comments in that USA Swimming webinar yesterday. Was for the 25s. They did that. For sure. Thing, for us, it was like 7 or 8 kids, because most of the kids doing 25s are still 10 and unders, which are exempt from the last thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. I guess the issue, I'm just worried about doing that. The developmentals are just newer kids.
And I know that's the way you do it every time.
So when you're like, hey, turn around and go back. I mean, of course, the prep and you talk to them, it would be no big deal, I'm sure. But I could just see if anybody is going to like get confused and just do something that they're not supposed to do. I don't know. It'd be those guys.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad
idea. The other, I guess, things that we gave clear instruction on ahead of time was where to drop off your kid, where to pick them up, because some of the places, and we did that based on where we had assigned seating for that practice group, because some of those areas were different than where they drop off and pick up on a regular basis. And then the warm-up pool, warm-up, warm-down lanes. So based on where they were sitting, so like our 11-12s were sitting outside in the courtyard. So we had them enter the warm-up pool on the starting block side, but then they needed to exit on the far side, because the seniors were sitting down the edge of the pool where they would have walked through if they got out and walked around to the courtyard.
Gotcha.
We didn't want, that's just unnecessary exposure. And so we assigned each practice group not only a place to sit in between their events, but kind of their warm-up, warm-down pool and entry and exit procedures.
Perfect.
But
that was a lot of information. I'm so glad.
It's a lot of information. And again, but coaches need to kind of think through this. I've got 6 meets I'm doing this year. The first 3 I'm planning on being inter squad, so that we can kind of figure out the mechanics of how this is going to work first. Maybe we're more open, maybe we're less open, but hopefully by then we'll have a system. And I think that you guys have hit on a lot of obstacles that programs are going to need to kind of figure out as they go into this.
I would just give the advice of, like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you can do this. Like, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And as long as you have, like, everyone who's involved in the process is working together and is not taking things personally, like, just, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
And I know that might be counter intuitive, or even like a little taboo to say in the climate we're in, but like, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
Awesome. And coaches need to know that too. Like, and I work with teachers, and teachers it's kind of like the cycle of grieving. Like, they go through cycles and stages of this where they're like, number 1, there's no way that this is possible. Number 2, I'm so sad that this is possible. Number 3, I'm angry that this is possible. Number 4, okay, I'm going to figure this out. Like, we need to get coaches through those steps of grieving and get to the point of, our kids deserve the very best, and we need to provide that. So what was the reception?
Another thing that we changed from the first meet to the second meet, actually from the first day of the second meet to the second day, was we combined genders. So just because it is inter squad, right? We have some of those upper level girls, and it was like, okay, these two are racing each other. It's going to get old. Like, how are we going to keep them motivated to just, hey, I'm racing you again, you know?
Yeah.
And so we, on the second day of the second meet, we switched it up and went mixed gender. And we felt like that.
For sure, the top girls is fun for them to be in some of the boys heats. You know, the top boys heats are going to be for the senior level.
Yeah.
You know, the 11 to 14-year-old level.
They were pretty
It's
even.
the girls. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, your faster 14-year-old boys, okay, of course they're going to be together, but the 11, 12 age group, 13-year-olds.
Yeah. Another thing we did differently. So Mike had talked about how the kids said it was like just kind of dead and hard to get excited. We added music. Like we had a DJ volunteer, and then we also added an announcer.
That's great.
So we are super lucky. One of our coaches, well, he's coaching on and off, but he's been there as long as I have. He is an amazing announcer.
I mean, like, if you go back and watch our Facebook lives of the swim meet, you're going to be like, this dude needs to be picked up by ESPN. Watch out, Reddy. Watch out.
No, and he just loves it. He'll for our big swim meets we used to host, he'll go home and like, he's like, man, I stayed up all night making this playlist and making the soundboard for the meet.
And I found trivia questions for current swimming.
And like,
it just changes the level of excitement in the building for sure.
Yeah.
And that's great for you guys that you guys are empowering your coaches to things that they're like, really passionate about. Because I mean, I've got my assistant coach is wonderful and she's way better than me. And I tell her that every day. But there are some things that she loves to do. And there are some things that she hates to do. And I mean, I want to empower her with the things she loves to do, even if I hate to do the things she also hates to do. So that's great for you guys as managing staff.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So those were some of the changes that we made from the first to the second meet.
Awesome. So what was the reception that you guys got from kids, from parents, from coaches? Like we always have angry people in every facet of our careers, but like I would assume that maybe every one of those parents just thanked you, because they haven't had their kids do that in a while.
Yeah, it was a great reception. The first to the second meet, we didn't have Facebook Live on the first one because we weren't really sure how it was going to go, and the Wi-Fi in our building's really bad. As for as beautiful a building it is,
I mean, cinder block and metal roof.
But we did a Facebook Live and we had, like if the coach Michael was announcing, we even had a commentator on the Facebook Live just using regular iPod headphones, just saying this is what heat we're in, this is the places they got. So the volunteers inside the building, like they commended us of how well it was run. The people watching the Facebook Live were so pumped. I know this like metric doesn't mean a whole lot, but like our Facebook followers for our swim team page went up like 50 to 100 people that weekend. And it was grandparents and aunts and uncles that got to watch. Like we got people tag us from them watching at home. So like they got to join and be a part of it. And they were all, as far as the parents, like they loved that part. Yeah. And like the awareness of what we were doing with our team also went up, which is always good.
Yeah. And that's huge. And I think that a lot of teams around the country, like that would be an afterthought. Like my focus is on kids in the water. My focus is not on grandma and grandpa at home. But those are the people paying the bills. Those are the people that are doing the dues. Like you want to cater to them and give them that opportunity to see their little ones.
And those are the people who are telling their friends when their friends are like, oh my gosh, my grandkids are so bored. I don't know what else to do with them. We can't go for another bike ride, And then grandma says, oh, did you see COM is taking new kids? They had a swim meet. Susie had a swim meet I got to watch on Facebook. And I mean, that's going to be how we all come out of this and actually thrive, right? Is we figure out how to grow in the current environment. Because if we don't continue growing, if we don't figure out how to engage new athletes in the sport, then we're not going to make it.
Agreed. 100%. So what are you guys looking towards next time? Like what is the next innovation that you'll have going into your next swim meet?
So we're doing another one next week. It's our last one, and then we're going on a little team break. But we are going to do one session long course and one session short course. So that's going to be our kind of, we know that it's going to get stale if we do the same thing every time. And with the possibility of only inter squad meets for the next who knows how long, we know we have to figure out creative ways to keep them motivated. So that the change for this one is we're going to have our Friday session. It's going to be long course. We're going to offer all 450s and the 100 free. And then on Saturday, we'll offer short course events, the 100s and 200s. Yeah,
so the 200s are new. And just like Jenna said, every meet we want to inject some sort of little bit of novelty just because it just keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
I think something we've been talking about, we're not sure yet. Inter squad, like team versus team within the team. So like a point system. Also weird events, where it's our pool, our meet. Like, why can't we do 75s fly? Right? Yeah. Who said it has to be 100? So
we're also trying to find one little piece of like fun. So last week, the meet was called the COM Summer Splash. So it was like summer fun. So we gave out ice cream cones at the end, like the prepackaged ice cream. And then this one is actually the 75th annual, excuse me, the 75th annual summer invitational for us. Like we've been hosting this meet for 75 years all across the community. And so we have the sponsorship money. We're going to buy the kids all a t-shirt, you know? And I know that's just a small thing, but like, I mean, a t-shirt to a kid is like a big deal, you know? And to a parent who like, there's not a lot of fun or not a lot of things to look forward to when the kid comes home and is like, check out the t-shirt I got at the swim meet. And, you know, I mean, it's just a little way to try and make it a special event.
We're also doing heat winners for all age groups, even the high schoolers.
Yeah, it's been fun.
We did a high school meet a few years ago, and we did heat winners. And I had a little freshman boy at the time who was like, you know, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, and he was in a heat with 2 other kids and won that heat. And he comes up to me, he's like, Coach Polano, that's the first time I've ever won an event. I was like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, you won that event, all right. the three heats after you that halved your time. Yeah,
man,
but that's going to inspire,
right.
You know. And it's like, where does Tom coach? Rockwall race. They do that Metal Madness meet every year after their short course season, and it's the same thing, right? They give out really nice heat winner awards. They like split the pool into 5 lanes, which is what we're running. By the way, we're running only 5 lanes for the meets to keep the races tight. And then they give out those medals, and it's fun. It's different, and the kids love to race, and that's what this is about.
Winning is fun. Yeah. Winning is fun. Like that's all there is to it. Like winning is fun.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a kid frown after they win? How many people win an Olympic gold medal and are like, meh?
Yeah.
Meh. So were there any unexpected hurdles that you really did have to kind of adjust on the fly? You talked about the temperatures being taken and like, hey, right out of the car, I'm going to beep your thermometer. But like, what were some things that like you were in the middle of it and go, oh, we totally forgot about blank?
So we didn't think about doing flyovers at first, like about doing flyover starts. And so when the kids started getting out of the water for those first couple heats, we were like, oh, wait a minute. Everybody was
together,
behind the blocks. And then they're like, what was my time? And the next kid's right there waiting to be called up. So that was an easy fix. It was like, we do flyovers all the time. Just do flyovers.
There wasn't, we talked about some of them, just the warm-up assignments, the heat outside. We have water bottles. We have cold water bottles for every athlete and volunteer. Little things. There wasn't really like
the masks for the 11 and overs doing 25s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there wasn't. There was no like deal breaker type hurdles. Mm-mm. Just little things you just had to be flexible with and adjust.
I think we so we put the high school kids yellow dots 6 feet apart. I think we're gonna make those like 8 or 10 feet apart next time. So they're the hardest ones to keep following the rules for sure.
Good for y'all. All right, so I've got one last question. It's a question I end with on every podcast. If you were to give one piece of advice to any coach, any program, any swimmer, what would be that piece of advice going forward from this post-COVID swimming mess? What would you say to them?
Is this only about swim meets?
About whatever you want it to be.
Oh my God, that's a horribly hard question.
Okay, I'll go. You have to make sure that your team still feels like they're winning, that they're still doing well. So like I was the big pusher on the Facebook Live. Like you can ask Jenna, I was like, this has to be perfect. Like, what's our Wi-Fi connection? What's our megabit upload?
Where's the expensive tripod?
Where's the tripod? What camera can we get? We need to buy this. Because it's like, the parents not being there on the pool deck and stuff, and also the kids just practicing. Like, you don't want to be a part of something that you feel like is going down. It's just anybody, any organization. You want to be a part of a team that's winning. You want to be a part of a team that's doing well. So keep having fun, keep celebrating the wins, and make sure everybody knows how you guys are winning. And you need to focus on thriving. Yeah, that's my advice.
I think I would challenge people to not dwell on what has been taken away or what is not possible, but what is now possible.
Huge.
What does 1 kid per lane make possible? What is 7 athletes in the water at a time? I mean, on that webinar yesterday, there was a guy who's saying, well, I can only have 8 kids in the entire pool at one time. What does that make possible? How much attention can you give each of those kids, or what does not being able to qualify for futures and juniors and all of those right now, what does that make possible for you to focus on with your athletes? Just try and think outside the box, think a little bit differently, and what is now possible that hasn't been in the past.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. How can we connect with you guys in the future? I know, Mike, you had put out a Google Doc about some different how-tos of setting this up. How can we reach out to you guys?
I'm old school. You can call me. I'm so social media illiterate. Mike has to be like, did you know you posted that? I'm like, I posted what? My phone number and email address are on that document that Mike posted. So.
So I put out a document on the Swim Coaches Idea Exchange group, breaking down basically everything we said. If Jenna wrote the document, it might have been a little more detailed, but it's an editable document, so we might be adding to it. But our contact info's there. My Instagram is Swim Coach Mike, and I also love Twitter at Mike Anzano. So if you're on Twitter, I would love to see you there.
And he has his own podcast, the SCM podcast, I believe it is.
Yeah, Swim Coach Mike podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Jason.